Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mercy, and today I am actually filming from a place where we have gone for a short weekend away. Our church has this once a year retreat where we all go up to the mountains, and it's normally during very good weather, like it's supposed to be very good weather, but guess what? It's snowing because, well, we are in the Alps, and the Alps behave the way they want to behave. So we got here and then it's snowing, and and it's funny because there are people inside a pool, outside an outdoor pool, and yes, it's quite weird. Welcome back to the channel. I am continuing my series about my book, how my writing journey basically. Today I want to talk about the inspiration, finding inspiration, and this is really perfect for it because the two books that I wrote, the two fiction books that I wrote, so Between Two Worlds and As I Do Your Hair, one of the things that they have in common is the two heroines are Kenyans who moved to Switzerland. And this was very much inspired by things that I see myself, my lives of people that I have interacted with, that I came into the country with, and how their lives have evolved and all that. And I just wanted it to be something that is a mirror of how we are, how we live basically, and just things that I could relate to. And I remember once somebody reading it and saying it was so funny reading and realizing that she could tell some things just based on the fact that she lives here. And then I had a few people who told me that, oh, now I know so much about Kenya because of the way it is. I had to correct them and tell them that I haven't lived in Kenya since I was 21. I go for holidays, and my depiction of Kenya is not as realistic as it should be because other people who live there have a different reality from me. But it kind of showed people what Kenya was like in the 90s. Even the people who are in Kenya needed to learn what Kenya was like in the 90s. Well, the ones who are not yet born. And today, as we were coming, actually, when we were in the train, I remembered my first day in Switzerland. And when I arrived at the airport in Geneva, the train ride in Geneva started well. And I'm looking at it, and it looks like a nice, boring, quiet weather. And then we reached somewhere and I'm seeing snow. And I thought, wait, isn't it supposed to be spring? Which is kind of the case today. It's supposed to be spring. We are in May, middle of May. We are supposed to be starting summer next month, but it is snowing. So much for the Alps. They did not teach me this in geography when they were teaching me about the Alps and all that. Things that we were learning which are never going to be relevant in my life. Anyway, so my writing journey, most of my inspiration came from just things that were going on around me and stories that I felt needed to be told. When I was writing about As I Do Your Hair, I kept thinking, what are the things that I wish parents were honest about? What are the things that I wish daughters got to hear from their mothers? I don't think there's any mother who wants to admit that they made a mistake. I don't like admitting that I've made mistakes, even with my kids. I really try very hard to pretend that I'm this person who knows what I'm doing. And turns out even they know that I don't exactly have it all figured out. So it's one of those things that we can pretend and we can live this life where we tell ourselves that we have it all figured out. We tell our children we have it all figured out. They pretend that they think we have it all figured out, but we all know, we all live in our realities knowing that, nah, you're just winging it. And how much better would it be if we actually admitted some of these things to our kids? With As I Do My Hair, it's a mother telling her daughter all the things she did wrong. Now, in this case, she is not playing 100% victim. She is explaining why she made the choices she made. Now, somebody can look at it and go like, oh, she's justifying immorality and she's scapegoating and blaming men for everything. But this was a woman who grew up in a family where there was so much love. And all she wants is to have the kind of marriage her parents had, but that's not what she's finding. She's finding men who, and she's it's not like she's not looking, but she's just looking in the wrong places. And most of her relationships, for the result that she wants, she is starting those relationships in very, very wrong ways, because you cannot start a relationship as a mistress and expect that somewhere along the line it's going to change and this person is going to end up being a faithful, nice man to you. That's not something that's ever going to happen. Anyway, so that's the first bit of that. So the inspiration just came from wherever. It comes all over the place. Now, when I started writing, because I'm not a professional writer, I've never taken like classes on how to write. But I remember one time I was talking to a lady who is a professional writer, and she ghostwrites novels. And she told me the best thing to do, especially when you want to write, at that time when I was talking to her, I wanted to write short stories. And she told me the best thing to do is write the chapters that you want, know the chapters that you want, know what you want to have in this book, and then keep coming back to it depending on the inspiration. So let's say you have you have a book with 3 chapters. Never gonna happen 3 chapters, but let's say 3 chapters. So the first chapter is about moving to a place. The second chapter is about the disaster that happened, and the third chapter is about the solution. And you can start from whichever you want. And if you feel, okay, today I'm motivated to write the second chapter, go and write as much as you can. And then if the next time you feel like, okay, I want a conclusion, go write the conclusion and then see how it will tie to the beginning and all that. And that's kind of what I did. My books are in parts. So there's part 1, part 2, part 3. And then each part has chapters. And so I did the parts. I did this is what I want, this is how I want it, and this is the flow that I want. Because of the way my mind works, I need to start things from the end, because if I don't finish something, I don't really like how, I never know what to do with the middle part. So I started both of them with one middle chapter and then wrote the conclusion. And when I was after writing the conclusion, then that's when now I start looking for these characters and fixing them wherever they need to be. Now, that is not something that would work for everybody. For some people, they really need the structure. They need to know chapter 1 goes like this, ends like this. Then chapter 2 goes like this, ends like this. Chapter 3 goes like this and ends like this. And that's also okay. Everybody needs to find something that sounds like them, something that is easy and flows well for them. And for the other professional books, The Silent Backbone is basically a collection of real stories about real assistants and coordinators who I have talked to. And it was, hi, do you mind if I rephrase your story and put it in a book? And they all said yes. And quite a few of those things are things that happened to me, or things that I witnessed, or things that happened to people that I mentor, or people that I have worked with, that we are close. So basically I have a huge network of assistants. So the number of stories I wrote there does not do justice to the number of stories I have. Like, I could write short stories about the stresses that people go through. It's just, I wanted to look at different scenarios, and some of these scenarios kept repeating themselves. For example, the bad onboarding and the bullying. This is a recurring theme in so many people's lives. So I could write a full book about bullying, because people have experienced so much bullying, and the bullying takes so many different forms that it was really hard for me to just choose one story and use it as the example of how bullying happens. And the same thing with onboarding. I've had good onboardings, bad onboardings, crazy onboardings that I'm like, what is this person trying? And but then I've also been part of an onboarding, and then the person came back to me after I had given my best. I had given my all to this onboarding, and then she came back to me and told me that was the worst onboarding I've ever had in my career. I took it painfully at that time, and I was very hurt by that review, but I learned from it. And now I actually learned that not everybody thinks and works the way I work. So it would make sense to write things down and then ask somebody questions about what they feel they need to know. Because I gave this person so much information that was useless to them, and the things that they were important to them, they never got. So the inspiration for the Silent Backbone was just basically my day to day. And that was probably the easiest book to write because there was nothing that needed, fiction, you have to make it interesting. I think my life is boring. I think most people's lives are boring. We never find the endings we want. But I wanted to have good endings for the fiction. So the fiction, you kind of have to be creative and look for something that works. Whereas when you write a book that is reality, facts, that one it's puff. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's working. This is what's going on, and then everything is fine. That's basically what I see as the difference between the two in my case. Now, other people that I've talked to, because I've ended up talking to a lot of people who've published books, and when I talked to a few of these people, the things that I learned from them were quite interesting. Some people told me that they found it easier to write the fiction because they love storytelling. Now, the thing with me is I love storytelling, but I love storytelling facts. Now, when I have to make up the facts, it stretches my imagination. I'm not that creative. I'm not a very creative person. I don't think so. And so I kind of found myself in a situation. I've just realized that the lighting is not awesome. But anyway, I found myself in a situation where I had to be way more creative than I had anticipated, because when I started, I thought, okay, I knew it was fiction. I knew I was going to have to be creative because I knew the story I wanted to tell. And I knew without adding some very creative stuff, it was going to be they were going to be quite bland as stories. So I went ahead and knew that I was going to have to add spice and things like that. But I did not anticipate that it was going to be that much, because when I gave it to somebody to read it, and she was like, yeah, but I'm missing quite a lot. I was like, okay, what am I missing? Then she told me, you need to talk more about the people, their characteristics. You've given us the story, but we don't know. We can't imagine what these people look like. So I had to go into describing people. I don't know how to describe people because I hate being described. I hate describing people. I hate having to talk about how tall somebody is, how their hair is looking. It's just not something, partly because I have grown up with body issues, self-esteem issues about how I look, how I feel, how I've grown up with all this. And to me, it just kept feeling like I'm judging these characters. And that's why in my books, the characters all tend to, somebody told me it's not realistic because most of those characters, even the ones that are supposedly not beautiful, they're still beautiful by conventional standards. So they told me you could have at least just made one person. And I was like, yeah, but then I would feel really bad about it. So it was hard. That was a hard part for me. Anyway, so if you are thinking about writing, I would say look for your inspiration and make sure that the inspiration you have is something that you can really tap into easily. As I said, the Silent Backbone was easy because I go to work every day, and almost every day there is something somebody is going to do that is going to make me go like, that chapter 6, I can add this as a coping mechanism. There's just, because the way I've written it, there's the problem and then the coping mechanisms. And I almost every day something happens, and then when you're already in that space, you're already looking for material. It was coming all the time. However, the fiction, if you're not a very creative person, I think it is not going to be easy. And I know that's the reason why many people write memoirs or self-help books, because facts are easier to write than fiction. Honestly, fiction is not as easy to write as we think. And I was surprised by this, because I grew up writing compositions in school, and I was quite good at these compositions. Our compositions always used to start with, early one morning as I was running to school, and then continue this. And I was quite good at those. But when now it had to come, and I had to write pages after pages after pages after chapter, the creativity just died. So I think for me, if I'm to write any other books, I would probably go with a memoir or instructional books or self-help books. But I think my fiction journey, at least for the short term, is not going to be coming up. So that's it about the inspiration for when you want to write your books. And the next video that I'm going to do is going to be not about, it's going to be about the publishing journey. As I said, I published the different books in different ways. And I'm going to talk about what I learned from the publishing and what I wish I knew before I started that journey.